Hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to explain the differences between exponential settings and linear settings in Fortnite. With the recent announcement of Legacy being removed from the game, lots of players are questioning what setting they should use going forward. Lots of people don't understand how they work at all. Like many people choose linear, but they don't really understand exponential or what exponential actually does. So in this video, I'm going to go through the differences between them and explain why I choose linear. So starting off with, we're going to use some graphs. The terms exponential and linear are like a rate at which something increases. So you'll see here, this is an exponential graph, and you see it starts out slow and then it like really increases, right? Starts out slow, small incremental increase, and then it like once it gets going, it really gets going. And that's how your sensitivity works if you're playing on exponential. You have a like little period where you're not increasing your sensitivity very much, and then you eventually reach your peak sensitivity. And I will have an example of how this works in-game after we show these graphs. And if you've been playing on Legacy the entire time, you've been playing on an exponential curve. Exponential and Legacy are very similar. The aim assist is just different between the two, but the way the sensitivities themselves work is actually very similar. Here we have a linear graph, and you just see it's consistent increase. It increases at the same rate pretty much constantly. And the way this translates in-game is that you basically just have your max sensitivity at all times, it seems like. Like I'm going to have some gameplay on screen right now showing the difference. This is an exponential setting. And as you see, when I spin, there's a slow period where I'm not spinning at full speed. And then eventually I start spinning at full speed. When I go over to linear, as you'll see here, I start at pretty much max speed right away. And how this translates into game is that exponential, it is a little bit easier to make small adjustments with your analog stick because of that grace period where you're not actually increasing. This is good for like long to medium range assault rifle shots or just making small changes with your sensitivity. Exponential excels over linear in that aspect. However, getting past that slow period and not having it at all really matters for Fortnite because you have things like building and editing where you often go from doing nothing to needing your max sensitivity and needing to make like massive change with your reticle very quickly. A lot of the builds that you'll be doing, like 90s, a lot of edits, shotgun flick shots, all of those things are going to be better on linear because you don't have that slow period, the like ramp up with your sensitivity. You just have basically the same sensitivity at all times. This makes it faster in my opinion. It also just makes it much more consistent. That's one of the things you'll notice a lot of people note with linear when they switch is just how much better their building and editing are. And that's because they don't have that slow period with their sensitivity. They just get right to the max sensitivity. And this might result in you playing in a little bit of a lower sense if you play on linear, or maybe like a little bit of a lower build edit sense, whatever. You can get away with lower sensitivities on linear because you don't have that slow grace period. You just always have the same sensitivity. And it can be hard at first to go for like medium to long range assault rifle shots. But me, having been someone who's played on linear since October of last year, my assault rifles have gotten very consistent. So if you're someone who's starting out now, just know that like it does get better. You can get good with assault rifles on linear. My assault rifles are very good today, and I've played on linear the entire time. So it's a little bit harder to get used to linear, but I definitely think it's worth it. One thing to note, and I don't really have gameplay proof of this, it's hard to describe, but I've noticed it, and I've talked to my friends who also play on linear, is that movement feels a little bit better on linear. I don't know if your movement has the same like grace period where you don't move at the max speed, but movement definitely feels more responsive and more snappy on linear when compared to exponential or legacy. Like I said, I can't really prove this. I don't have any gameplay to show it, but I've talked to my friends and they feel the same way that I do, and I've seen other people say the same thing on Twitter, so I think that there's a case for that. It's hard to describe, but I definitely think there is something going on with the movement of these two settings that makes linear feel more responsive, more consistent, just like aiming with the sensitivity feels more responsive and more consistent. So I hope that I did a decent job of explaining it and explaining what the differences between these two settings are. Once again, exponential increases slowly and then it reaches its max, whereas linear pretty much just starts at its max sensitivity at all times. And the example I did on screen with spinning, you can do yourself in game, and that's like the easiest way I feel like to demonstrate the difference between linear and exponential and what it really comes down to. As far as going from legacy to these new settings is, the aim assist is different. So legacy had L2 snap on. When you aimed in, if you were close to somebody, it would snap on them, and that was like the main aim assist for legacy. These new settings have a very similar aim assist that is mainly up close based. Your hip fire is much better and much more sticky to people when you're playing on linear or exponential. Like they both have more close range dominant hip aim assist and not as much long range aim assist as Legacy goes. And you can get through this with your playstyle. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people struggle with switching from Legacy to linear is that they try to play for long range like they could in the past. Whereas when you're on these newer settings, you want to play more aggressive and up close to people, less medium to long range AR shots. You can go for more close range fights, more close range spray. I find myself playing off SMGs way more than I did in the past. So, and that works out well with the game right now because traps are gone. So I hope this video was helpful to you in any way. If you have any comments down below, please do remember to leave them. Like the video, subscribe. I'm going to have more videos about this topic because I know a lot of people are going to be switching from Legacy to one of the new settings and they don't know really what they want to do. And I feel like there's not a lot of content out there that necessarily explains the differences between the settings. There's a lot of like, these are my settings, try them, or I like linear, I like Legacy. But I feel like a lot of people don't do necessarily a really good job of explaining the differences between them and actually showing the differences between them so that the user can, pick a choice for themselves. So I like linear. Also with these settings, I recommend turning the boosts and dampening time off and then just finding a sense that works for you. Exponential already increases exponentially, so I really don't think there's much of a need for boosts. I don't use boosts on linear because those boosts would make it to where you're not on your constant sensitivity at all times. So I'd recommend turning the boost and the dampening time off, playing with your sensitivity, your X and Y to try to find a good hip fire sense for yourself. That's the main thing you want to target with that sensitivity is what makes your hip fire feel good. Your build and edit sense, obviously you can fine tune to whatever you need. So if you need to play on a little bit of a lower X and Y, that's fine because we have build and edit sense. And then finally your ADS, you fine tune for ADS. So that's it for this video. Hope you guys liked it. Comment down below, like it, subscribe, all of that stuff. And I'll see you guys another time. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna write a book about how the heavy sniper is overpowered. Like, even right there, I'm taking his pieces without ever exposing myself, which just isn't a thing otherwise. Which one of you motherfuckers has a grappler? Jeez, how did I just win that game, bro? That's so clutch.